Hello everyone and welcome to Cinderful Gaming. I hope you're all doing well, I hope you're all staying safe, and most of all I hope you're all fighting that war against the grey. Today we have another Start Collecting video looking at one of the box sets coming out for Christmas this year. For those who don't know, normally around Christmas time Games Workshop releases a bunch of Christmas boxes, or Battle Forces as they call them, for both Warhammer Age of Sigmar and Warhammer 40,000. What we'll be doing in this series is going through all the Warhammer Age of Sigmar boxes and talking a little bit about the units in them, how we can use them to start an army, what they give us, what we can use to expand upon this box, and at the end we'll look at a little sample list using this box as the predominant aspect of that list to sort of see if we can get a workable army out of this box. What's really cool I found this year is a lot of these boxes do equate to roughly 1,000 points in various different builds. It does mean you have to build certain parts in certain ways to get 1,000 points and sometimes to get a legal army out of it. But that's it. So let's get cracking on and talking about what we get in this box. And so to start with, we'll talk about the character up the front. You can see the Loonboss on Giant Cave Squig there sitting at the front. He's the Squig, the teeth with legs on the bigger base, you can see at the front there, and he's effectively a leader unit for the Squigs. He's a mounted character, he's got a decent amount of attacks. The Squig also can punch out a decent amount of damage for its size, and he's got a really cool command ability in that he can pick a friendly unit with his command ability, and all friendly Squig units held within 12 inches of that model can move an extra 3 inch in that movement phase, so it makes sure your bouncing with the Squigs a little bit more reliable. For those who don't know, Squigs have random movement of 2d6. A unit cannot benefit from this command ability more than once per phase, so you can just add an extra 3. So even if you roll double 1, they're still going to be moving 5. They're still going to be moving a basic unit's movement in the game. Obviously, you can add run to that. Worth noting that all Squig units fly, which is really cool because they bounce, so they appear as they have fly. So they ignore all vertical terrain on the battlefield, which is just awesome when it comes to getting these Squigs where you need to get them. Next up, we're going to talk about the big other hero potentially in the kit, which I do recommend building the hero variation. Mainly because the best way to work this box is to make those Troggoths battle line. The Loonboss on Giant Cave Squig, he only unlocks Squig Hoppers, which are fairly inferior to Boingrot Bounders, so I think it's better that you build a Dankhold Troggoths and unlock those Troggoths as battle line, allowing you to build the much superior Boingrot Bounders over Squig Hoppers, though you can flip that. We'll talk about that more in the list later though. So the Dankhold Troggoth is the Troggoth hero. You can see in the picture here they've got the Dankhold Troggoth built, so not the Trogboss, they've got the non-hero variation built, but the Trogboss is pretty decent. His Giant Boulder Club, 4 attacks, 3 threes, Ren 2, damage d6, and you can also use a crush and grip attack to instantly kill particular models. He's got some cool magic resistance, he's got regeneration, and he adds +1 bravery around him as well. He's then got a cool command ability. If you can do so, you pick one friendly Dankhold Troggoth hero. With his command ability until the end of that phase, you can reroll hit rolls of 1 for friendly Troggoths nearby, which makes those Troggoths near him much more fighty. He's also got a decent 4+ save, although for his size he is pretty slow for, I guess, a monster equivalent hero with only a movement of 6. But we'll then talk about the Troggoths. So Troggoths, what I recommend with your Dankhold Troggoths, they will become battle line, and in this you get 6 Rockgut Troggoths. So Rockgut Troggoths are a little more resilient naturally. They don't have minuses to hit like, say, the alternate Troggoths do, but they have a feel no pain or an after damage save or a ward save, whatever you like to call it. They get a 5+ ignore of all damage, and then they get some regeneration as well, and they can also throw boulders to do some mortal wounds by throwing rocks. They've only got 2 attacks, so not great, so that's really why you need the Dankhold Troggoths. It really helps them get that a little bit more consistent. 3s rerolling 1s is much better than straight up 3s. And that's really all there is to say about the Troggoths. We'll then move into the other unit, and that is you get 15. Now, I know in this picture there was a lot of questions about whether or not you get 14, but no, there is 15. Games Workshop announced that you get 15 in this box set. It's just a error for the print. So you get 15 Squig unit people, or grots, whatever you want to call them, and they can be built into either Boingrot bounders or Squig hoppers. Now, Squig hoppers, what they've got pictured here, they're the ones with sort of like the hand weapons and the non-armored variations, where you can see in the middle of the picture there, they've got 5 Boingrot bounders built. Now, I recommend you at least build 10 Boingrot bounders. Although, if you're wishing to make the Squigs battle line and have that Squig hero, that grot, as your general, you will need to build 10 Squig hoppers. Though I would strongly suggest against them, unless you're going to really expand into Squigs later and sort of move your Troggoths to the side, it's not something I recommend building. Now, speaking of that, that brings me to an important point upon this box. So, for me, this box starts 2 armies, not 1. Gloomspite Gitz have this issue where their pieces don't necessarily all fall together unless you've got a core of grots in between it all. So what I mean is not grots riding Squigs, just plain old grots on foot. You really need that as your core to make all the pieces around it work. If you're going to play Squigs and Trogs, you're better off just playing one or the other, not both in the same list. So while you can build a list out of this box, I would strongly recommend that this actually builds 2, or if you're going to add stuff to this, to get grots. I won't talk too much about getting grots because there's not a lot to say on them. They're your basic troops for the army. So we'll get into talking about some other things you can build, you can get to make these units better. I'll look at more expanding this into 2 different armies, if that makes sense. So let's start where we can look. Obviously, I've mentioned you can definitely go out and buy some Moon Clan grots. That'd be a great addition to the army, especially really focusing on a major core of your force. It would be probably one of the things I would suggest, but we'll look at other ways to sort of expand into the Squig and Troggoth factions as well. And so Squig Herd are a great option. They give you lots of troops on the board for a cheap cost, even cheaper than your Squig Hoppers, which for me just makes them a better option, unless you're going down battalion routes later on. Squig Herd are really cool. They have no random movement, unlike the rest of the other Squigs. They're just a big blob of cheap bodies. They actually get 12 for 70 points, I believe. And yeah, they don't necessarily do much, but they got lots of bodies on the table. And what's really cool is they become battle line when your general has the Moon Clan keyword. So this means a Fungoid Cave Shaman or a Cave Shaman can get it, but also your Squig mounted general, your Loonboss on Giant Cave Squig, can also make them battle line. Next up though, we've got the Mangler Squig, and this is a fantastic model. This is probably the big centerpiece of the army, unless you're going to finally go down Spider Fang route at some point, though there's no way in this box set to really accomplish that as a starting base for your army, though you can always grab some Arachno Rocks or something later. But for me, Squig theme, there's no better centerpiece for your army than a Mangler Squig, and a Mangler Squig on Loonboss, or sorry, Loonboss on Mangler Squig, not the other way around, that would be one squished grot, is a fantastic centerpiece for the army, not only because it's just an amazing model, but because it has some really cool abilities. So Mangler Squigs are rather deadly. They do have an issue with maybe dying a little bit quickly. They do have 4-up saves, so it's not terrible, but it's certainly nothing to write home about. But you can also have this cool command ability where they add +1 to wound to friendly Squig units nearby, which is awesome. And then, yeah, they add 1 to their attacks for the balls and chain, add 1 to hit rolls for the balls and chains when they charge. And in general, those Mangler Squigs are just horrendously powerful, with some D6 damage and D3 and plenty of them. What's also really cool is you can build an unmounted variation of this, which in cohesion with, say, a Loonboss on Mangler Squig makes a devastating 1-2 punch combo that can just rip through pretty much anything in the game. And also something really cool is that these Squigs here actually get more powerful the more damage they get. So they'll start going down in power to their middle bracket, which is actually their worst, and then they'll start going back up as they get near death, meaning you're going to get a lot of work out of a nearly dead Mangler Squig, which is awesome. Next unit to talk about though is where we can expand Troggoths, and well, there's only actually one other Troggoth unit available from the Games Workshop web store. excluding Molog, who is iffy at best. He is an Warhammer Underworld's warband, and if you want a cool different Dankhold Troggoth unit, he's definitely a way to go looking at that. And you also have a Forge World unit known as the Troggoth Hag, though she is a little bit lackluster at the moment. And also try not to suggest Forge World, mainly because it's a lot harder to attain. Anyway, Fellwater Troggoths are an interesting choice of unit that you can pick up and put into a army, and they give you something different than what your Rockgut Troggoths do. So for starters, they don't have the after damage save that the Rockgut Troggoths do. They still have a Troggoth regeneration, and they have Terrible Stench, which actually makes them -1 to hit. And they also have a shooting attack that is only 6-inch, so it's not, but actually has a weapon profile rather than the Troggoth's ability of throwing boulders. They've got 4 attacks. They're only damage 2 with their weapons, but they're 3/3s Ren 1, not Ren 2, and only damage 2. So for me, there's some pros and cons on both units, but it's cool. This can give you something different to paint up and just give you a different sort of feel in your army and a different unit for a different job. Last up for things I would suggest picking up for a Gloomspite Gitz army, though, and what I'll expand upon next, is definitely picking up some of the shamans that Gloomspite Gitz have available. While it might seem weird, but goblins actually are one of the armies that can make most use of magic in the game. They have a ton of cheap wizards, some of who can be double casters for a single turn, like the Fungal Cave Shaman I've got shown here. And you've also got amazing character wizards like Squig Herd the Loon King, who is a really powerful sorcerer. Their own Allegiance abilities can potentially help them as well, get this spellcasting off, and they've got some really great endless spells. This is probably an army where suggesting buying the endless spells is probably a good idea. In almost all Gloomspite Gitz armies I play around the 2000 point mark, I will always take 3 endless spells. The shamans are just great though. They've got some fantastic sculpts, and like I said, the army can make a really good use of them. So they're definitely something I recommend having a look at next. Lastly though, let's talk about a list that we can build from this box set. And like I said, this box set actually works best as 2 separate armies, but we've managed to build a 1000-point list using the models in this box, so you can get this army straight out onto the table and playing some games with it. So once again, recommend building the Dankhold Troggoth. He can be your general. He's going to take the command trait Mighty Blow, which allows him to reroll the damage on his giant club, and the artifact from the Realm of Fire called the Incandescent Rage Blade. If you haven't seen this artifact, it is not in the Gloomspite Gitz book, but it is in fact in the General's Handbook under the Realm Artifacts of Realm of Fire, or Akshi. And what this does is it allows any 6 to hit to turn into 2 wound rolls. This just can up his damage potential a little bit. It's a cool thing to make your Dankhold Troggoth that little bit more fighty. We then have the Loonboss and Giant Cave Squig, and that's simply what he's going to be. And then for battle line, we're going to have the 2 units of 3 Rockgut Troggoths. They're just solid, they'll be battle line, and they'll be hard to shift for your opponent at 1000 points. Other units, we're going to have a unit of 10 Boingrot Bounders and a unit of 5 Boingrot Bounders. Now, you can play around with this in however you want, because Boingrot Bounders are 100 points regardless for 5, so you can make it unit 15, you can make it 3 units of 5, 1 unit 10, 1 unit 5. I think 15 is a bit overkill. 10 should do most of the work at 1000 points, and the other 5-man unit means you have this little mop-up crew as well. You could, of course, choose to make them Squig Hoppers and flip around to have the Loonboss and Giant Cave Squig as your general, making the Squig Hoppers battle line. And then you wouldn't need to take the Dankhold Troggoths as a general, and you can probably fit something else in, maybe a shaman or 2. But I wanted to really show off that this box can just be 1000 points straight out of the box and playing games with. You're also choosing to take an extra command point, mainly because you do have low bravery on quite a few of your units, so you're going to want that extra command point hanging around. But that's really it for the army list. I'd like to know your thoughts on this box. Well, I hope you enjoyed the video. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel. If you'd like to come chat with me more and other members of our fun community, you can do so by joining our Discord server, which you will find in the description down below linked. Also, lastly, a special shout out to everyone who supports the channel via Patreon. Thank you all to our Sinful Guard Militia members Christian Weir, Philip Ward, Soren and Kenny Lowe, and our Free Guild Regiment members James and AJC. Thank you all so much for your support. If you'd like to help support the channel like these fine gentlemen do, you can do so by following the link in the description of the video down below to our Patreon and picking a Patreon sponsorship that helps you help us. But that's all for today, everyone. Stay safe, stay well, and most of all, keep fighting that war against the Grey. I'll see you all again real soon. Ciao for now.